Okay, let's go ahead and open up the doors, folks. It is Friday. We are here, Pharmacist Fridays with Pharmacist Ben Fuchs and Becca. And welcome to the Daily with Doc show. So hello, everybody, as everybody's coming into the live Zoom room. If you are watching one of our streams and you would like to join us live, you may do so by going to dailywithdoczoom.com. That's dailywithdoczoom.com. My name is Becca Dukes, and I am honored to be the hostess of this show, where we are bringing to you empowering information that you can use as tools in your toolbox when it comes to this journey called life and the journey to optimal health, and letting your body be the best that it absolutely can be, because it is not nutrient deficient. Folks, you're in for a special treat, as Fridays we have with us Pharmacist Ben Fuchs, who has quite a story. I love his story, where he talks about becoming a pharmacist, working in the in labs, and creating, which I love it because he's got a very creative, analytical mind, and then going into the pharmacy world and getting fired because he was recommending nutrition to go with their pharmaceuticals or instead of pharmaceuticals. And he has taken all of his information and his passion for the skin and the body and created formulas that help from the outside in and inside out. And the inside out is where we're focused today with Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Welcome, everybody. If you were invited by somebody specific to watch this program, make sure that you get back with them. They cared enough to take the time to share this program with you. So give them the thought and tell them thank you for sharing the program with you, because I know you're going to be listening and hearing some information that you may not have heard anywhere else. So I am going to bring to the screen Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Hello, Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. How are you today?
Hello, Rebecca. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I know this is a lot of work, and you do it every week and once a month, and you do it with Doc, and you're just an amazing resource for longevity, for all us longevity folks. Thank you.
Well,
I don't know if you get enough props. Do you get enough props? Because you deserve them. Props to Rebecca.
But see, I'm not in it for the props, okay? I'm in it because I have benefited from what I am excited to be able to share with others. And I wouldn't have benefited from this if somebody hadn't have told me. So let's tell the world.
Good deal. That's what we should all be doing. Spreading the word. You know, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't talk to people about Beyond Tangy Tangerine and the Healthy Start Pack and Dr. Wallach's message. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror knowing what I know from people like yourself and all the other hundreds, maybe thousands of people that have benefited, that I know personally that have benefited from the longevity supplements and the longevity message. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't spread the word, if I didn't share the word. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's amazing that we're able to spread the word. Because in some countries, you're not allowed to be able to talk outside of what the government says you can and can't talk about. So where we do have some restrictions and some limitations because of that whole entity that tells me that I'm supposed to let you know that this program is for educational purposes only.
You're just saying that to get a rise out of me. You know what, Rebecca? Life is for educational purposes only.
That's right. Life is for educational purposes only. And then what we do with that education determines the outcome, right?
That's correct. For entertainment purpose, life is for entertainment purposes only.
Okay. I like entertainment.
Yes, I like entertainment too. So it's really important though that we get the message across that there are things that you can do to the human body that are independent of the medical strategies that we all assume are the only things that we can do. There's other things that we can do, and that's a very important message. And you don't need to mention brand names, and you don't need to step on the toes of the FDA or the American Medical Association or the standard paradigm in order to spread that word. What we're doing, Rebecca and everybody, is we're offering options. We're offering choices. There's so many people that don't know they have choices. And we got to remember that us on the call, people who are doing the call, people who are listening to the call, we're not the average person out there. The average person out there has no idea that they have choices to the doctor strategies, the medical strategies, whether they're surgical procedures or whether they're drugs or whether they're devices or whatever it is. They have no idea that they have options and they have choices. And that's what we're doing, is we're providing choices. We don't tell people what to do. We just tell people what is available to them if they so desire. And that's really important because we sometimes, I know the people I talk to sometimes take it for granted that most people don't know about supplementation, and most people don't realize that their health challenges are the end result of lifestyle choices that we're making. Just before this call, I take calls all the time. on the phone talking to people. And just before he got on this Zoom call, I was talking to a gal who I've been talking to for a long time, and she's got terrible hyperpigmentation. And she always wants her to make a cream for, she always wants me to make her a cream for hyperpigmentation. And I'm always telling her, it's Carol. I say, Carol, you got to understand your hyperpigmentation is the end result of hormonal changes that you're going through, and hormone changes, which of course are the end result of lifestyle choices and supplementation and foods and other things. And I have to tell her this every time I talk to her. And the only reason I have to tell her every time is because every time she goes to the doctor, she's getting hydroquinone, or she's getting hormone creams, or she's getting some kind of medical strategy, and nothing's helping her. So I have to tell her that there are other things to do. There are other things that are available to her, and there are other things that she has to do if she wants to get rid of the hyperpigmentation. And it's true about all other health challenges. I'm in the skin business, and it's especially true about the skin that what we see on the skin is secondary to what is happening inside the body. And we live in a world where we sell billions, $100 billion a year in different topical products for wrinkles and for rashes and for dark spots and for dry skin. And at the end of the day, the skin is what shows up on the skin is an epiphenomena. That means it's secondary to things that are happening inside the body. And the skin is just a poster child for the secondary nature of health challenges. But it's true about high blood pressure. It's true about cancer. It's true about heart disease. It's true about the long-term chronic degenerative diseases that make up 80% of our health costs and most of our health misery. So you got to work in the fundamental basics. And when you work on the fundamental, and working on the fundamental basics represents options to the medical strategies and the medical models that most of us assume are the only way to take care of health challenges. Not only that most of us assume, but that we're told over and over and over and over again. It's not that we assume it. It's that there are commercials every 2 minutes practically that tell us you got to take a drug for your psoriasis or for your autoimmune disease or for your depression or your bipolar disorder. Every time you go to the doctor, unless it's a naturopath or it's a chiropractor or an alternative practitioner, you're going to hear the medical dogma. Do you know what dogma means? The definition of dogma, literally, by definition? It means something taken on faith, not on evidence. And the medical strategies for taking care of health challenges are dogma. They're taken on faith, not on evidence. In fact, the evidence says that it doesn't work. That's why we have more doctors and drugs and devices and hospital protocols, and we're the sickest and most cancer-ridden and the most obese and the most autoimmune disease-filled culture in the history of mankind. Clearly, what we're doing, what we consider to be the mainstream strategies for taking care of health don't work.
Well, Lee makes a comment here in the Zoom chat with us stating, and I find it very true, that most people would prefer not to know how responsible they are in how their body shows up.
Yep, that's right. I would agree with that, Lee. And we're not talking to those people. We're talking to those people who smell a rat, or we're talking to those people who are not satisfied. We're talking to those people who think that there might be something else they can do, or who suspect that their lifestyle is somehow impacting or is the major impact of their health challenge. For those folks, and you're right, most people are like that, this message isn't going to land. In fact, a lot of those people will think we're crazy. How many people you talk to that you think that, oh, you're just doc is just crazy, or a quack, or you're just crazy, or you're just some kind of freak health nut? Fine. We're not talking to those people. We're talking to the people who are at their wits' end, who have hit the bottom and are now looking for something, are desperate enough to look for something different.
And that's exactly where I was.
Yep, exactly.
Something inside me said there has to be something. And I searched all through what allopathic medicine had to offer that I could or was willing to, because I didn't want to have anything else cut out of me. I didn't want to have surgery. Getting a herniated disc, bulging disc, and they want to shave off that part of the disc that's then, that just didn't make any sense.
Right. Or you have a heart arrhythmia, so they want to electrocute part of your heart with an ablation. Yeah. Or that you have endometriosis because your hormones are off or whatever, you're not getting enough essential fatty acids. They want to remove your organs. Sometimes they'll remove your organs even if you don't have symptoms, just because you don't need them anymore. If you decide you don't want a baby, they will literally take out your female organs if they think you're not going to have a baby, because you don't need those silly things anymore. You don't need
Yeah,
those silly organs.
you don't, you don't, you don't need them, maybe because you don't want to have any more babies, but the body itself
A
still
whole
needs them.
system. You can't take out, you can't take first base out of the baseball field because nobody's hitting singles, and you won't have a baseball field anymore. You can't take your womb out of your body. You won't have this. It won't be a body anymore. It will be a different system. It won't be a human body. Same with the gallbladder or the appendix or any other system. Now, there's times you need an organ taken out if you have cancer or if your appendix bursts. But for the most part, the vast majority of our surgical procedures can be substituted. The surgical procedure can be substituted with some kind of lifestyle strategy, with the
Well,
exception.
let's talk about some lifestyle strategies.
Okay.
And you had mentioned the hyperpigmentation.
Yes.
David here in Zoom with us says hypopigmentation is exactly what I have on my forearms.
Okay.
I'm 67 years old and have followed you and Dr. Wallach for years. Do I have a hormone problem?
Yeah,
or what are your suggestions?
likely there's always hormone issues that are going to happen as we get older if we're living a standard American lifestyle. But hypo, meaning low or less or reduced, pigmentation is white spots, as opposed to hyperpigmentation, which are dark spots. The most important cause of hypopigmentation is destruction of the pigment-making cells. Pigment-making cells are called melanocytes. In biochemistry, whenever you hear the word cyte, C-Y-T-E, that's biochemistry talk for cell. So a cardiocyte is a heart cell. A myocyte is a muscle cell. An osteocyte is a bone cell, etc. Fibrocyte is a fiber-making cell. The cyte cell that makes pigment is called a melanocyte, the pigment being melanin and the cyte referring to cell. So melanocyte is a pigment-making cell. The melanocytes live in the skin. They make pigment. And they make pigment most especially in response to the sun, but also in response to certain hormones. So hyperpigmentation is usually a hormone problem that's triggered by the sun. Hypopigmentation, on the other hand, involves destruction of the melanocyte. So when the melanocyte is killed off or is inappropriately destroyed, you won't make pigment. The most important cause of hypopigmentation or melanocyte destruction is an autoimmune problem, an immune problem, where the immune system attacks the melanocyte. Technically, they refer to this as an autoimmune disease. This is what all autoimmune diseases are. Autoimmune diseases are when the body, the immune system, which is ordinarily supposed to attack something that's coming into the body from the outside, attacks itself. It's not a mistake, and there's some mechanisms for these autoimmune diseases that are very rational and logical. The body doesn't make mistakes. Doctors want us to think, or the medical representatives want us to think that there's mistakes. Oops, sorry, oopsie. Body doesn't do that. There's no oopsies. The body's very logical, and there are reasons for the body attacking itself. Most especially, it involves toxicity that's entering into the body through the bloodstream. And this is where autoimmune diseases begin. All autoimmune diseases, whether they're multiple sclerosis or rheumatoid arthritis or scleroderma or lupus, there's about probably 80 different autoimmune diseases, and they keep adding more, are always the result of some kind of toxicity, probably in combination with nutritional deficiencies and lack of oxygen. But the trigger is toxicity that enters into the body enters into the bloodstream through the digestive system. It's true about all autoimmune diseases. Hypopigmentation is an autoimmune issue, an immune issue where the immune system attacks the melanocyte, kills the melanocyte, the pigment-making cell. The technical name for this autoimmune issue where the melanocyte is attacked is called vitiligo. You may have heard that term, vitiligo. So vitiligo is the name of the autoimmune disease where the immune system targets the cell that makes the pigment, the melanocyte. Now, if you look in the literature, they will tell you that vitiligo is associated with various food particles. Things like gluten, for example, can be associated with vitiligo, and other substances that are found in foods. Well, it's not so much the foods as it is the entrance of the toxicity, sometimes food particles, into the bloodstream. This is how autoimmune diseases begin. And everybody should know this, because autoimmune diseases are, number one, miserable. Number two, endemic. There's some 30 or 40 million people that have autoimmune diseases in this country. That's 1 out of 10 people. And number three, there's no known cause and there's no cure. There's nothing in the medical strategy or medical protocol or the medical bag of tricks that can cure or reverse an autoimmune disease. So anybody who's dealing with an autoimmune disease should hear this, mechanism. When you get toxicity that enters into the bloodstream through the digestive tract, through what's called leaky gut, secondary to SIBO. I know we talk about this all the time. And I hope nobody's getting tired of hearing it or thinking that Ben or Dr. Wallach or Rebecca is a one-trick pony, because the fact of the matter is that's where everything starts, is in the intestine. So once toxicity enters into the bloodstream through a leaky gut, following SIBO or following other inflammatory causes, these food particles and bacterial toxins, literally food particles and bacterial toxins, get into the bloodstream and they trigger the immune system. They can trigger the immune system in the blood and create something called circulating immune complexes, or CICs, or they can trigger the immune system in various glands. And when you think about it, a food, the amino acids, the molecules in a hamburger, or the molecules in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or the molecules in a pizza, from a molecular standpoint, are exactly the same as the molecules in your thyroid, or the molecules in your pancreas, or the molecules in your connective tissue, or the molecules in your joints, wherever. The molecules of food we're basically food from a molecular standpoint. We're built up the same way as a hamburger, or a piece of pizza, or a candy bar, whatever, from a molecular standpoint. So when these molecules enter into the system, they can trigger the immune system, or they can create distortions at the level of the various glands. And then the glands and these molecules, through what's called molecular mimicry, can trigger the immune system. That's an autoimmune disease. If you understand what I just said, you know more than your doctor. You can take that right to your doctor and tell them that. And there's no way, as I think I said this last week, the things we talk about are indisputable from a mechanistic standpoint. And you notice I always tell people how things happen, right, Rebecca? You know, whenever I'm talking, I'm always telling you how things happen. I don't want to just tell you take this or take that. I want you to understand how things happen, so you can understand your body, so you can treat yourself, so you can be your own health authority. And if you understand that mechanism that I just talked about, you can now take that to your doctor, and there's no way he can dispute what I just said. That is biochemistry 101. Toxicity enters into the bloodstream, it initiates an immune reaction, which then gets turned on to the various glands of the body. That is biochemical logic. That is not an assertion. That is logic, biochemical logic 101. So vitiligo is the same thing. Anybody who has vitiligo knows, or any autoimmune disease, knows they have some kind of intestinal issue, whether it's constipation or diarrhea or bloating or gas. And if they don't know, and sometimes people, this is also very interesting, I'm sure you run into this, Rebecca, you know, they have all the symptoms of a digestive health problem, whether it's an autoimmune disease or skin rash or acne or some other kind of chronic health challenge. And they say, well, my digestion's fine. I don't have any digestive problems. And they believe that. It's not like they're lying. They don't know, because we don't really have a reference for a digestive problem. We don't ask our friends about their bowel movements, and we don't know necessarily if we're constipated, and if we've had gas all our life after we eat certain foods, we just assume that's a normal thing. So you gotta really probe, and where there's smoke, there's fire. So if you have smoke in your house, you can't say, well, I don't have a fire because I had the fire department come and check, so I don't have any fire. Well, no, you have smoke. That means you have a fire, whether the fire department checked or whether you have asbestos or fireproofing or whatever. If you have smoke, you have fire. So if you have the symptoms, inflammatory symptoms, you can assume that there's some kind of digestive problem. And if you don't know it, find it. Not to make yourself wrong or not to make yourself bad, but to find it so you can put an end to it, so you can stop it. Vitiligo is the same way. Now, I don't know if this gentleman has vitiligo, but it's the most important cause of hypopigmentation, of light spots on the skin. Occasionally, there are very small light spots. Vitiligo is like large patches. Occasionally, there are very small spots that can be the result of fungal infections. And that can happen too. Again, a fungal infection is also an intestinal problem. So whether it's an autoimmune disease or whether it's a fungal infection or whatever it is, always focus on the digestive system. Now, I've talked about the triangle of disease as the cause of all health challenges, which is the digestive system, the blood sugar system, and then the adrenal thyroid complex. The thyroid is the jumping off point because that controls all the cells and all the organs. But to even simplify things even more, and I'm all about simplification. Pharmacy is about simplification. That's why the pharmacist is the most trusted profession in the world of health, and just the most trusted profession generally, is because we're trained in simplifying very complex subjects, health and chemistry and biology and medication, and we're taught how to simplify that for the average person. So I'm all about simplification. And the triangle of disease is a simple way of understanding how all disease begins. But I've recently decided there's even a simpler way of the triangle of disease. It's the line of disease. Instead of the third point, just focus on the digestive system and the blood sugar system. Okay? The adrenals and the thyroid, you could do they'll fall into place. You can work on the adrenals for sure with relaxation strategies and by working on the base of the triangle. But if you just work on the digestive system and the blood sugar system, you will go a long way towards extending your longevity and reducing the symptoms of chronic degenerative disease if you happen to suffer from them. At the bottom of all health challenges that are chronic and long-term and degenerative, and quick digression, degeneration is an aberration. Degeneration should not occur. If you're degenerating, the body is not doing what it's supposed to do, which is what? Regenerate. It's in the body's nature to regenerate, to heal, not to degenerate. So if you're degenerating, as in chronic degenerative disease, that means things are getting worse and worse and worse. That's an aberration. You can always rest assured, you don't need to be tested, that you're dealing with an intestinal problem and a blood sugar problem. Just assume it. Straighten out the blood sugar, which we talk about all the time with the sweeties and with dietary strategies and drinking more water and the healthy blood sugar pack and exercise. Work on the digestive system with the elimination diet and calorie restriction and all the wonderful digestive health supplements that Dr. Wallach and Longevity and Dr. Joanne Conaway have come up with, the Daily Digest, the Ultimate Microbiome, the I-26, the Ultimate Enzymes, the Noni Plus, et cetera, and you will notice that your symptoms will subside and you will begin to feel better. Vitiligo or autoimmune diseases and vitiligo are no different.
Well, one thing that I like about you, Pharmacist Ben, is you take these things that are so complicated and you do simplify it.
Yes.
And you're a great teacher. So we have a lot of people here with us. I've got lots of questions that are coming in. And another one has to do with, where'd it go? You had mentioned mold. And I don't know if Anne wants to come on and give this testimony.
I had mentioned mold.
As far as hypopigmentation being possibly mold.
I remember saying mold, but
or okay. Fungus.
Fungus. Okay, gotcha.
You may have said fungus.
Yes, there's a condition. There's a fungal condition that can cause vitiligo. Yes.
Yeah, and Anne's testimony here. Anne, do you want to come on and give it? If so, go ahead and unmute yourself. Let me bring you here on the camera with us. Anne, please share your testimony.
Hi there.
Hi, Anne.
So I tested positive for mold a couple months ago. And so I've been doing, the binders. I've been doing the Oxybody and the colloidal silver. But one of the things my doctor said is I needed to work on lipid replacement. So I heard.
Well, hang on, Anne. Lipid replacement.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that means exactly. Do you know?
Well, because she was talking, I go to a functional medicine doctor, yeah. And she said that the mold it damages your cells and it breaks down the lipids that are within your cells.
Okay, so what does lipid replacement mean, though?
Let me see what I have here.
You mean ingesting lipids, replacing
Yeah.
lipids?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Okay.
she said the lipids get messed up with the
Okay,
mold.
so lipids are always getting messed up. That's a whole different thing. First, let me just clarify something. When I talked about a fungal infection, I was referring to a condition called tinea versicolor, which is a superficial infection of the skin that is the result of fungal imbalances in the body. Fungus in the body and bacteria in the body compete. Fungus make things that kill bacteria. Bacteria make things that kill funguses, and they're kind of they balance each other out. When one thing overgrows or another thing is undergrows or is killed off, the other thing can overgrow. So a lot of the things that we do as a culture kill off our good bacteria. Things like antibiotics in the water, taking antibiotics intentionally, chlorine, fluoride. So these can, and also excess ingestion of sugar can cause fungus to overgrow. And this can cause various kinds of fungal infections, which are notoriously difficult, next to impossible to take care of by killing things. So the idea of killing things with colloidal silver and oxybody, it's not a great way to kill fungus inside the body. Now you're talking about mold, I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, Ann, mold in the environment, like in your house, you're breathing mold. That's a little bit different. For mold that's in the environment, the most important strategy is going to involve histamine. And it's going to involve controlling histamine production, which of course goes back to the intestine. So histamine and histamine intolerance are largely intestinal problems, and sensitivity to mold, sensitivity to pollen, sensitivity to environmental toxins, sick building syndrome, they call it, things that outgassings from your carpet and from your wall and fabric softener. We're really swimming in an ocean of toxicity. Sensitivities to those oftentimes involve excess production of histamine. So how do you have excess production of histamine? Well, histamine is produced by bad bacteria in the colon. This is where I think we talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So, and I'm going to use my spidey sense here. I'm going to be psychic pharmacist Ben now. And I'm going to tell you something. You have some kind of intestinal issue. You must know. You must have some kind of bloating or gas or any of those things. And that I'm teasing because I'm not really psychic, Ben. I'm pharmacist, Ben. And so, but this is a pharmacy thing. This is a medicine thing. So what you want to do is you want to focus on the gut. Now, I said earlier, just focus on the gut anyway, no matter what's happening. But here's the mechanism. When bacteria overgrow in the intestine, they produce histamine. Under ordinary circumstances, the body can break down histamine, but when histamine is produced in large quantities, eventually the body can't break it down. And then histamine starts to build up. And then when mold comes, or when pollen comes, or when outgassings from the paint in the walls or the insulation inside the walls or the carpet or your fabric softener hit, the histamine that's produced overloads the histamine system and you become symptomatic. And so that's called histamine overload or histamine intolerance. Sometimes even worse, sometimes if it gets really bad, you have cells in your body, and this is just, most people don't even know about this. This is just, you guys, if you're listening to this, you're on the cutting edge here. If you understand this, you're on the cutting edge. Sometimes you have these cells in the body that are packed with histamine. They're called mast cells, M-A-S-T, mast cells. These mast cells are sometimes triggered by pollen and by outgassings and by other toxins, and they'll explode and they'll release even more histamine. That's called mast cell activation syndrome, MCAS. And most doctors don't know about it. Nobody really knows about it yet because we've only learned about this the last 20 or 30 years. And those are the people who react to everything. Mast cell activation syndrome. So if you find yourself reacting to everything, bottom line, you're likely dealing with the histamine problem. If you're a woman who is at the age where her estrogen is starting to become imbalanced, it becomes really, really dangerous because histamine amplifies or enhances estrogen. And that's where you get breast cancer and ovarian cancer and female reproductive problems, is from this amplification of estrogen by histamine. So working with histamine becomes really important for the patient who's allergic to everything, for the patient who is sensitive to mold or sensitive to outgassings, et cetera, sick building syndrome, and for the patient who has estrogenic health challenges, particularly if it's a woman, a postmenopausal or perimenopausal woman. How do you deal with histamine? Well, there's lots of ways to deal with histamine. Most importantly is kill off those good bacteria with your I-26. And Rebecca, I'm in love with that I-26. And for some reason, we don't talk about it anywhere near enough. It seems like it's kind of a mysterious supplement that nobody can really understand how it works. It's critical for the SIBO patient or the histamine producer, the high histamine producer, the I-26. Vitamin C in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine is a natural antihistamine. Progesterone, which we don't have, but if you can get on progesterone, is a natural antihistamine. Quercetin, which is in the, I think it's in the, one of the immune products. Rebecca, help me out.
I think it's the Immune FX.
It might be the Immune FX, is a natural antihistamine. Here's a great natural antihistamine that nobody knows about. The Sleepies, melatonin, is a natural antihistamine. And as we get older, melatonin levels naturally drop. So that's another great way. And zinc is another natural antihistamine. Zinc has got a reputation for being wonderful for the immune system, partially, although we just discovering it recently, is because it helps control histamine levels. And then also cannabinoids. The Hemp FX line is contains natural antihistamines. The cannabinoids are natural antihistamines. So you can use the natural antihistamines as well. So working with gut health, taking the I-26, staying away from problem foods, doing everything you need to do for leaky gut. And by the way, histamine intolerance symptoms are similar to gluten intolerance. So you can say, well, I'm off of all gluten, but I still have my arthritis, or I still have my rashes, or I still have my skin problems, etc. It could very well be histamine intolerance and not the gluten. Both of them will cause issues with leaky gut. So these are great things to do. That's what I would be, that would be the approach that I would take. Trying to kill off mold without working on the terrain. The terrain is the area, the ground that the mold are growing in, is like spitting into the wind. You know, it's not really going to get you much benefit. This whole notion of terrain medicine is something that this famous biochemist named Antoine Béchamp talked about in the 1900s when Louis Pasteur, I don't know if you ever heard the story of Louis Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp. Louis Pasteur is the guy who came up with pasteurization, and he's the reason why we use antibiotics and we kill bacteria. And Béchamp was his nemesis. And Béchamp said, no, Louis, it's not the bacteria, it's not the germs, it's not the fungus, it's the terrain that the fungus are living in. You have to take care of the terrain so the fungus and the bacteria can't thrive. And Louis Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp had this big argument. Finally, when Louis Pasteur died, he famously said on his deathbed, Béchamp was right. It is the terrain. And that was his famous last words, but we didn't pay attention to him. And today we still focus on the bacteria because of we have this pharmacological model that says, let's kill the bad guy. Instead of let's change the environment, we say, let's kill the bad guy. And that is really, that's not a form of medicine or healing that works except for maybe in terms of emergencies when you have some kind of infection. So I'd be working on the terrain, particularly the intestinal terrain, if I were you, Anna. I hope that's not too long-winded for you.
Well, no. Go ahead, Anne. You want to share some of your positive results?
Yeah. So, you know, all of those things that you said are true. I have problems with my digestive system, and I used to work in a big old leaky building, and I know that's when it all started, because when we moved into that building at work, and I'm retired now, so I'm out of there, but I had a sinus infection. It was the first thing I got, like the first week we were there. So I know that all of that is from the building. So I totally agree with everything you said, because I've always had hay fever and allergies and everything like that. So I know it's the histamine. But yeah, so I've been working on my digestion, because it's been crazy. And I've been, like you said, I've been gluten-free for years. And I'm sensitive to dairy, so I don't have dairy either. And it's still, my digestion is a mess.
It's the bacterial overgrowth. Have you tried the I-26?
Yep, I use I-26. I mean, I use one dose a day. Should I use multiple doses?
Yes, absolutely. And also there's essential oils, you know, peppermint oil, oregano oil, holy basil. I think we have holy basil. That all of these medicinal essential oils also have antibacterial effects.
Okay, that sounds great. But also, before when I was talking about the lipids, I heard you talking about lecithin before.
Yeah, yeah.
So I started taking that, and that stuff is great because one of the first things that happened is for years I've been craving fats.
Yeah.
And after I started taking that, I don't crave fat anymore.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, lecithin is in the ultimate enzymes, and it's one of the great underappreciated, non-toxic, inexpensive nutritional supplements. Very, very important for fat absorption. That's awesome. Good job, Ann. Nice going. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Ann. So I have a question, Ben. How is it that lecithin then kills fat cravings?
How is it? Well, let's put on our Sherlock Holmes forensic biologic forensic caps. Why would lecithin kill fat cravings? What does lecithin do? It actually does a bunch of things, but what does it do in terms of fats in the body? Any ideas?
That's a question I have for you.
Okay, good. And then I'll answer the question. Lecithin is an emulsifier. We use it in skincare to bring oil. Emulsifiers bring oil and water together. Part of the digestive process involves emulsification. When you eat a fat, it has to be combined with water for digestion to occur. And the body will use a magical compound, which I consider to be the most underappreciated and one of the most important liquids in the body, to bring oil and water together, or to bring a fat and water together. So eat a fat, goes into your digestive system. In order for the body to process it, it has to be combined with water. It's like if you have peanut butter and jelly on your knife. You've probably heard me give you this example before. You have peanut butter, you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, there's peanut butter and jelly on the knife. You stick it under water, the jelly rinses off, but the peanut butter sticks there, right? Peanut butter is sticky, it's fatty. Fat, from a molecular standpoint, has its electronic energy spread out. And that makes it very sticky, like Velcro. You ever wonder how Velcro works, why Velcro works so well? It's got lots of little hooks. If you look at a Velcro's tab, and they're spread out. And all of these hooks spread out allow Velcro to stick. Well, peanut butter is the same way, or oil is the same way. Using peanut butter as an example for oil, the electronic energy is spread out like Velcro, and that makes peanut butter and oil very, very sticky. That's why it sticks on the knife while the jelly rinses off. So what does this got to do with lecithin? What does this got to do with fats, right? When you eat a fatty food, all the fats in the food stick together. They don't lend themselves to the digestive process very well. They're very sticky. You can't digest them. So the body has to combine it with water so it's more like jelly than it is like peanut butter. So how does it combine? Water and oil don't mix. How are you going to combine water and oil? How are you going to combine water? If you put water over your peanut butter, the water is just going to run right off, right? It's not going to rinse off the peanut butter unless you use something that will bridge, that will link the water from the tap to the peanut butter on the knife. What do you use? You use soap.
Oh, soap.
Right?
Okay.
Right? You use soap. You use dishwashing detergent. What's the magic in dishwashing detergent that gets rid of the peanut butter when water doesn't do it? Dishwashing detergent has a molecular shape where one side sticks to water, or one side connects with water and the other side connects with fat. That's how an emulsifying agent works. It has a watery side and has a fatty side, and the watery side connects with the water from the tap, and the fatty side connects with the peanut butter, and it pulls it all together and it rinses it off. That's how soap works, right? So lecithin is a biological soap. It pulls oil and water together. So when you eat a fatty food, lecithin will take water from the digestive system and combine it with fat from the food and pull it out, allow it to all to be digested. Like soap will allow your peanut butter to rinse off of a knife. Lecithin is natural soap. Well, lecithin is the major component of what I consider to be the body's most underappreciated, underrecognized substance, which is bile. Lecithin is a major component of bile, and bile is your body's natural soap. that breaks down fats by allowing it to combine with water from the digestive system. So when you eat lecithin, your body digests food fatty food more effectively, which is why it's in the ultimate enzymes. And lecithin is a part of bile, but many people don't have a gallbladder, or they have a liver problem, they're not making enough bile, or the bile they're making is thick and sludgy and doesn't have the same emulsification properties. So using your ultimate enzymes with your meals helps support the activity of bile, the soap activity of bile, the emulsifying activity of bile. This, Rebecca, to answer your question, makes fats more available, makes the body makes the digestive system more receptive to dietary fats. If you have more, if your body's more receptive to dietary fats, you're getting more fats into your system. Your fatty needs, your fatty requirements are met. You don't crave fats as much. So fat cravings can be the result of not getting the benefits of fats because you're not making enough bile, or your bile is too sludgy, or your gallbladder is missing, etc. Using lecithin can help you your body get more fats, and you won't crave them as much. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So does lecithin then help with like extra fat on the body?
No, that's a different kind of fat, although it might have. That fat from the body is a storage form of energy. The reason why we have so much fat in our body is because we are storing it for a rainy day. The body is very successful or very effective at storing energy for a rainy day. Because from an evolutionary perspective, there wasn't a lot of energy. Energy is measured by calories. So for a long time, there wasn't a lot of calories. And so the body became very equipped, very effective at storing excess energy. Well, today we don't have that problem, but our body is still very effective at storing excess energy. So the reason we have fat in our bodies is we're putting too much energy into the body, particularly energy in the form of sugar, as well as energy in the form of fat. So no, that's a whole different thing. That involves energy metabolism, and most of us have tricked our bodies into thinking that we got to be storing energy by not exercising and by not stressing and by excess ingestion of carbohydrates and fats, mostly carbohydrates.
All right. Wow. Lots of information there, folks. So I know I learned something. I hope you learned something as well. And as you're thinking about what he just talked about, you can probably think about
one last thing in. I know I just gave you a lot, but if I could just pile on here with one more thing. One of the best fat burners you could ever ingest. You want to know what a great fat burner is? Longevity fat burner? Yeah.
Yes.
One of the best fat burners you could ever ingest is a nutrient that is also one of the most important sugar metabolizing nutrients that you could ever use. And it's a supplement that we sell at Longevity. Well known as a fat burner, well known as part of what's called the glucose tolerance factor, which is a complex of molecules in the body that helps us break down and utilize sugar. And that is the ultimate niacin. And niacin deficiencies are very common, but niacin is a well-known fat burner and also sugar metabolizer. And I always include it whenever I'm talking to people about blood sugar metabolism or fat. I always include it because it's not in the healthy blood sugar pack. So you have to add it extra in the healthy blood sugar pack. For people, when you put somebody on the healthy blood sugar pack, always throw in the ultimate niacin. And niacin is so important for the body that it's the one vitamin that the body will actually make in an emergency situation. In fact, the definition of essential, we talked about the definition of essentials, like air, right? You got to have it. Niacin is the one vitamin that the body will actually make under deficiency conditions. However, it won't make enough. And that's why niacin deficiency disease is more common than people realize. What is the name of niacin deficiency disease? Do you know? It's called pellagra.
Okay.
And pellagra, if you go to medical school, they'll tell you pellagra is marked by the 4 Ds. The 4 Ds are diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and death. These are the 4 Ds of niacin deficiency: diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and death. This is like a medical school mnemonic. The 4 Ds of pellagra, or of niacin deficiency: diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and death. But what that doesn't account for, and this is really, really important, what I'm going to say now, it doesn't account for the nature of subclinical deficiencies. What does that mean? Subclinical deficiencies. We know pellagra is a deficiency disease, like scurvy is a deficiency disease, or like beriberi is a deficiency disease, or rickets is a deficiency disease. So if you have rickets, your bones don't form right. You end up with horrible soft bones, and people have not become knock-kneed, and they got to wear braces, and it's really, really horrible disease. You know, scurvy, you could just die. If you don't have pellagra, you'll suffer from diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and death ultimately. But you may not have pellagra to the point where you're dying or have full-blown disease states, but you may just have a little GI problem, digestive problem. And we know niacin deficiencies, subclinical niacin deficiencies, can cause malabsorption and can cause digestive health challenges. You may not have full-blown dermatitis, but you just may have dry skin, or you may have just rashy skin or sensitive skin. And we know niacin, by the way, is very important for the formation of the skin barrier. If you don't have niacin, you're not going to be able to form a barrier effectively. You'll be one of those people that says, I break out no matter what I put on my skin. Everything makes me rashy. Everything makes me itchy. Even more notably for our discussion today, when you're not forming the barrier correctly because of niacin deficiency, you'll be more prone towards hyperpigmentation. Hyperpigmentation, dark spots, can be caused by barrier deficiencies, as can sun sensitivities. You may not have full-blown dementia, but you may just be forgetful. Or you may just have a little bit of attention deficit problems or problems focusing. And all of these can be related to subclinical niacin deficiency. Not to mention full-blown dementia. You have to wonder how many people in the nursing home have been diagnosed with dementia and all they have is niacin deficiency. Because we know niacin deficiency can cause dementia. How do we know that at least at least some percentage of those people who are diagnosed with dementia, which there's no drugs for, no cure for, or simply need some more niacin? Or how do we know those people who have a full-blown dermatitis or rashes or redness don't have niacin deficiency? Likewise with GI problems or diarrhea, chronic diarrhea, we don't know. And here's a little interesting nutritional story, a nutritional anecdote. After the Civil War in the South, people were very poor and they didn't have a lot of protein foods. Well, niacin is found in high protein foods. So people would subsist on foods that didn't have a lot of niacin in them. And they would end up with rashy red skin. And when they worked out in the sun, they would especially get rashy redness right around their necks. Thus, we started to call these people down south who didn't have niacin and who were suffering from skin manifestations of pellagra, rednecks. And that's where the term redneck comes from. How do you like that? That's a little nutritional anecdote for you. You can tell that at parties.
So rednecks, I was raised by a redneck, but we always considered them, kind of.
Well, some of them were also had some of them also had certain personality characteristics to go with their rednecks. But the redneck itself came from working out in the sun under conditions of niacin deficiency.
Makes sense. So Aaron makes a comment here that niacin acts like insulin.
Niacin is part of the glucose tolerance factor, along with chromium. Chromium and niacin together form the glucose tolerance factor, and helps the body process sugar. Insulin is a little bit different. Insulin helps cells store sugar. Insulin doesn't really work directly with glucose, but it opens up cells. Insulin is like a garage door opener for cells. It opens up the garage door so nutrients, not just insulin, but all nutrients not just sugar, but all nutrients can go into cells. So you want to think of insulin as an opener for cells that helps cells get nourished. And that's a really good point, actually, because today and increasingly over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, we've suffered from something called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, right, is when cells don't listen to insulin. When cells don't listen to insulin, the sugar doesn't get handled. The sugar doesn't get absorbed and the blood sugar rises. Blood sugar doesn't get pulled down. One of the ways the body pulls sugar out of the blood is by sticking it into cells, but under conditions of insulin resistance, that doesn't happen. But here's the thing. When you have insulin resistance, all cells become malnourished because insulin's not just a garage door opener for sugar, it's a garage door opener for vitamins, for nutrients for the cells. So insulin resistance is not just a sugar problem, it's a nourishment problem, a cellular nourishment problem. So you can eat all the food and all the nutrients and all the supplements you want, but if you have insulin resistance, which many people do, the cells, which is really what we're talking about here when we talk about nutrients, it's about the cells, aren't going to get the nutrients that they need. And malnourishment is one of the hidden signs, and cellular dysfunction following malnourishment is one of the hidden signs of type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance syndrome. It's not just a sugar problem, it's a cell nourishment problem.
Right. Now, another question about niacin, a comment that he makes, he says that the flush is from niacin is due to poor redox state and dehydration, plus COMT SNPs. Now, before you answer this or respond to this,
We got a biochemist in the audience, it sounds like.
when I take one niacin plus,
put the biochemist on. I want that biochemist. I want to see the biochemist.
I'm going to bring him up. But when I take one, I get a flush. But if I take two, I don't get a flush.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know what that would be. Essential fatty acids are the best way to handle, the ultimate EFAs are the best way to handle the niacin flush, number one. And your body gets used to the niacin flush over time. So once you have a certain baseline level of niacin, you're going to be okay. You should be okay with the niacin flush. But our biochemist mentioned something called COMT, right? I take it you're a biochemist because that sounds like something a biochemist would say. Is that correct?
Yeah, my degree is biochemistry.
Okay, good for you. So here's the thing. So for the audience, for the non-biochemists out there, COMT is a very, very, very fascinating enzyme. So Aaron, how do you suppose, you're a biochemist, so how does COMT, based on, and we talked about this earlier in the call here today, based on what we talked about earlier in the call, why would COMT improve or be involved in the niacin flush?
It's partly due to the BH4 when you're working.
What's that? Partly, speak up.
Partly, there we go. It's partly due to the BH4.
No, well, I don't know what BH4 is.
That's another enzyme involved in the pathway when you're going through.
No, it's much simpler than that. What is the role of COMT? What is one of its most important role? For the listeners out there, for the non-biochemists, COMT is an enzyme that is involved with something called methyl. And I'm not going to get into too much with that, too much chemistry there, but just think of the word methyl. What does COMT have to do with the niacin flush that we talked about earlier? We talked about this earlier.
Methylation, because you're going.
Methylation of what?
B vitamins.
You're on the right track. Methylation of B vitamins is involved, but histamine is detoxified by methylation.
Correct.
So COMT, which Aaron so astutely pointed out to, is an enzyme that breaks down histamine.
Correct.
The niacin flush is partially mediated by histamine. So the job of COMT is to neutralize histamine to prevent the niacin flush. However, you can't really supplement with COMT. What you can do is you can use methylating agents, and that will help. But more directly, if you just use essential fatty acids, the anti-inflammatory properties of essential fatty acids, the ultimate EFAs, will act to control the histamine response. And you can use the ultimate EFAs for that. And when you start supplementing with the ultimate EFAs, you'll notice that you don't get the niacin flush as readily. And you'll also notice that the same thing will happen over time as you use your niacin. As you use niacin, the flush becomes less and less profound. you notice it less and less.
Those will help with the ketones because ketones will also help.
So Aaron, are you you're doing longevity?
I am, yeah. I've had bad luck with getting things to work though, because I'm a weird patient.
Where are you located?
I'm in Oregon.
Why don't you give me a call sometime? I'd love to talk to you.
Sure.
Love biochemists, and I love biochemistry. And that's everything we talked about here today, you guys, has been biochemistry.
And then that also ties into quantum biology because
The whole redox, well, at the end of the day, it's all quantum.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, chemistry only works because of quantum, and it all has to do with the bouncing around of electrical energy, which is called redox. And that's really what all life is just the bouncing around of electrical energy, like a hot potato, like a piece of electricity just being played hot potato with across molecules. And that's really what quantum is all about in redox. But we don't need to go into that, except to say that's where that's where the magic happens.
As you lose energy, you tend to swell up and get larger.
And that's exactly, and die and break down and die. That's right.
That's what happens to a star in space when it loses energy. It swells and gets larger.
All of that, yes. All right, thank you so much, Aaron. Give me a call sometime. I'd love to chat with you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Aaron. And let's go. Can we have time for two quick questions?
2 quickies.
Okay, so one of them is coming from YouTube, and Health U360 says, lines, ridges on my fingernails. What should I do about it to stop it?
It could be a lot of things, but the first thing I have to think about is the thyroid. That's a sign that the fingernail, whenever tissue is not, remember the thyroid is the jumping off point to all bodily breakdown. Whenever the fingernails or any other part of the body are not forming correctly, that implies some kind of breakdown at the cellular level. So the first thing to think about is the thyroid. That's hypothyroidism, and that would be the only way to deal with the thyroid. You can't deal with the thyroid, directly. You have to work at the level of the adrenal glands, the blood sugar system, and the intestine. And that would be the Healthy Start Pack, the blood sugar pack, and then maybe the de-stress and anything you can do to work on the adrenal glands. But you can't work on the thyroid directly. That's a classic sign of hypothyroidism. It could also involve the production of stomach acid, because without stomach acid, you can't absorb minerals and you can't absorb B vitamins, both of which play and protein, and all of which play an important role in the formation of nails, among other tissues in the body. And again, that could be related to hypothyroidism as well. So you might want to work back on the triangle of disease, and that would be the Healthy Start Pack, Healthy Blood Sugar Pack, the Ultimate Niacin, and anything you can do for adrenal health, including the de-stress.
All right, so there's your answer for that one. Now let's go to Deborah, who has her hand up. Deborah, what question do you have for Pharmacist Ben today?
Hi, Deborah.
I'm confused now in my question. You've done such a great job in giving such a big overall picture. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like I got to digest it.
Confuse you.
I got
no, listen, Deborah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because maybe other people are confused too. Healthy Start Pack. Everybody gets the Healthy Start Pack. Anything you could do for digestive health, and we have a ton of products for that. Ultimate Enzymes, Ultimate Microbiome, the Daily Digest, the I-26, the Nightly Essence, and I'm probably missing a couple. Anything you do for digestive health, and then the Healthy Blood Sugar Pack and the Ultimate Niacin. And then you can start to get some specific things too. But go ahead.
The I-26 makes me nauseated.
You may have an egg problem. You may have an issue with eggs. Do you have an issue with eggs?
Well, I eat them in the morning, but sometimes they don't sit well with my system.
You may have an issue with eggs. So if that's the case, if you have an issue with eggs, do smaller amounts of the I-26 and break yourself in slowly. There are some people who can't do the I-26 because it is powdered egg.
Okay, so my eggs every day is not helping me.
It may not be. But sometimes egg allergies are secondary to histamine problems. So sometimes if you can take care of the digestive issues, sometimes you may be able to eat the eggs. All food allergies can sometimes be related to histamine. And by the way, you can get histamine inside the body through foods, fermented foods, leftover foods, processed meats. These are all potential sources of histamine. Cheeses. So you may have histamine overload, and by reducing the histamine that you're eating, you may be able to handle the eggs. I don't know if that's the case, but it's worth a try.
Okay. All right. And we may not have time for this today, but my challenge, another one of my challenges is that I've had a full hysterectomy, had
Okay.
ovaries out when I shouldn't have had them out. And also my gallbladder's out.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so trying to manage my digestive system
There's a lot. Why don't you, are you going to come on the call? Why don't we use you? Because there's a lot there, and that's a very good question. There's probably a lot of people in your same position that you're in, so we can help a lot of folks. Can you come on the call next week?
Yes.
Why don't you come on the call next week and we'll talk about that?
Okay. Sounds wonderful.
Good deal. In the meantime, get on the Ultimate Enzymes. Get on the Ultimate Enzymes and use the Noni Plus with them to activate the enzymes.
Noni Plus?
Noni Plus. You always want the Noni Plus with your Ultimate Enzymes. And we'll talk about that, Deborah. That's a great question. If you don't mind, let's talk about it next week.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. I hope that was good, Rebecca. I hope I didn't complicate things too much. I know I talked about a lot of different things, but
got a lot of different things, a lot of things that we'll be able to take snippets and use those as individual little cuts to help promote awareness in health and what you can do, folks, to help yourself and be your own health authority. Lots of great information. Thank you so much, Pharmacist Ben. As we are now calling Fridays Pharmacist Fridays,
okay,
with Ben Fuchs and Becca Dukes. So I thought that flowed pretty well. I think so.
Ben Fuchs and Becca Dukes. I love it. Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you, everybody.
Well, we're going to make sure that we give credit where credit is due. So, folks, if somebody shared this program with you, get back with them. They cared enough to be able to speak freely in sharing this information to you, because one, you probably believe in it because they're feeling the results as too. And two, when nothing else works and the doctors say there's nothing else that can be done, well, they haven't found the nutritional side of it, because the body can do some amazing things when it's given the right ingredients. If I could get my co-hosts on the screen with me, just want to do a quick little shout out. Lee, I see your hand. We're out of time, but thank you so much. As we are airing on the radio, we have to keep within blocks of time there for the radio programs. Also, some other exciting things that we have coming up and getting our message out where people are at. And people do still watch TV. So, hey, I'm excited for the things to come. I want to do a shout out to Albert as he was letting people in and watching the cameras and watching the chat. Thank you so much, Albert, and Marilyn, as she's doing amazing dictation in the chat here in the Zoom room, which, folks, if you're not watching us here live and you would like to be part of our live audience, we invite you to do so. We are here most of the days throughout the week. So next week is going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Is that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I believe. Possibly Thursday. We haven't got a confirmation on that on Daily with Doc, where we are bringing more individuals to the screen with us that are sharing information that allows you to be more of your own health authority. And we have AJ, who is helping on the back end of production and getting everything set up and spreading the word even farther through audio and visual. So I just want to do a big old shout out to AJ as he is working hard behind the scenes and during the show and making sure everything is flowing correctly. So, everybody, thank you for joining us here on Daily with Doc.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks again, Pharmacist Ben.
Bye.
And we will see you Monday, everybody, on Daily with Doc. Quick, DailywithDocZoom.com. That's how you can reach us. Until next time. Oh, wait, before I go, if there's nobody to thank, make sure that you go to our website, DailywithDoc.com. There you'll find the replays of our past programming. You will also find a way to sign up for our email list, where we send out an email that gives links to each of the previous week's shows, including descriptions, to make it easier for you to be able to find what you're looking for and share it with those that it would be pertinent information, life-changing information for them. So make sure that you sign up for our email list there. Got a newsletter that's under construction, and you can go to contact us and reach us through email if you'd like to reach us through email and get what would be right for you. Or when you sign up for a newsletter, we've got a spot in there where you can enter in your questions as well. Let us know if you're already a customer with Longevity, or if you're already working with a distributor. That way we can know best how to help you and include your distributor in your health journey, because they're the ones who introduced you to it in the first place. So we will talk to you all. Thank you, everybody who's watching us out on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Patreon, Spotify, Amazon Music, I said Rumble, Simplecast, iHeart, Google Podcasts, Instagram. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. So AJ's gonna get me to learn all these things. And folks, let us know where you're at. Do a thumbs up, a follow us. Make sure you're following us. Send a comment in the chat if chat is available. Let us know that you are there. We want to meet people where they're at. Until next time, I will always be Becca Dukes, here with empowering information to empower you as an individual. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.